My name is Abram Goodstein, and I'm a video gamer. Yeah, felt good to get that off my chest. Yes. I've been playing video games for as long as I can remember, ever since my dad introduced them to me when I was a kid. And I've always felt this sense of guilt playing video games. Because what is the opportunity cost? All of those times I was sitting down and playing video games, I could have been making the world a better place. I could have been doing things. Instead, I was at home and I was leveling up. Now, for you non-gamers out there, the process of leveling up is completing or beating one level and going to a more challenging level. So even though I felt this guilt, it wasn't enough to make me stop. And you may know what I'm talking about, because there's other pastimes and activities that we do that are not productive but still take up time, like scrolling down Facebook or binge watching Netflix. However, recently I've begun to feel less guilty. And my epiphany comes from a story adapted from Israel Salanter about a lady named Laura. Now, Laura, she's a smart, good, ambitious person, and she wanted to change the world for the better. And so time passed, and Laura reflected on her life, and it occurred to her that if the world had been changed for the better, Laura had nothing to do with it. And so, disappointed, Laura decides to lower her expectations. And she decides, I know, I'll change my community for the better. And that plan totally backfires. Her community resents her for trying to change them. And so Laura, defeated, thinks some more and decides, I know, I'll change my family for the better. And that plan backfires too. So Laura, who started out wanting to change the world for the better, now had a community and a family that resented her. So, very defeated, Laura reflects again on her life and decides she can only really change herself for the better. And as a result, the world was changed for the better as well. So, what does Laura's story have to do with my gaming guilt? Well, at first you may say, well, Abram, all you have to do is stop playing video games, just change your habits. To which I would say, I've tried that. Lasted for like maybe 3 months, and I was back in. So I would argue that maybe I should change the way I feel about playing video games. Games may be necessary for my mental well-being. Video games offer challenges and puzzles and accomplishments. What if playing video games, in a healthy and reasonable way, of course, actually helps me become a better person, a more productive person, someone who's all around happier, healthier, and focused? What if video games help me to level up? Then too much guilt is preventing all of these benefits. So when I spent time looking at Jewish sources on gaming and video games, I was actually really happy with what I found. In fact, you don't have to go very far at all. For example, Hillel said, if I'm not for myself, then who am I? In other words, helping myself by playing video games could be part of the true expression of my character. In the book Relational Judaism by Dr. Ron Wolfson, he lists 9 different levels of relationships. The first and foundational level he calls Bein Adam Latzmo, between a person and him or herself. For Dr. Wolfson, the relationship of the self is absolutely the most important relationship, and he sees the self as a sacred entity. And he writes, the sacred self is relational. The sacred self is unique. The sacred self is imbued with a sense of Kiddusha, a spirituality born out of the realization that what I do in the world makes a difference, a unique contribution that only I can make. So here's what I think Dr. Wolfson is saying. When I play video games and do other pastimes, I'm actually participating in a sacred act. Playing games opens me up to other types of relationships. They help me level from a relationship with myself to a relationship with my family, Dr. Wolfson's 2nd level, to a relationship with my friends, his 3rd level, and so on and so forth, until I reach the 9th level, a relationship with God. And the same thing goes for Laura. When she was ready to see herself as sacred, she was also preparing herself for Dr. Wolfson's levels of relationships, especially the 8th level, between herself and the whole world. Martin Buber writes about this in his book Hasidic Stories. In his book, he tells of the famous story of Rabbi Zusha, who's on his deathbed and he's crying, and his disciples ask him why. And he says, because I'm scared that I'll meet God, and when I do, God will say, Rabbi Zusha, why weren't you more like Rabbi Zusha? In other words, why didn't Rabbi Zusha practice Dr. Wolfson's Bein Adam Latzmo and think of himself as uniquely sacred? Instead, Rabbi Zusha is feeling guilty on his deathbed. He's about to leave this world with guilt, and I don't like that. I don't think guilt is a bad thing, and it can be a great motivator and a tool to get things done. But I also believe that too much guilt prevents people from having the space they need to unwind and enjoy themselves. And maybe this was Laura's problem as well. She chose to work on all other relationships before she worked on her own. And since she was not true to her own character, she couldn't help herself or anyone around her. However, when she figured out that she needed to focus on herself first, before anything else, the possibilities of her accomplishments became endless. And a scholar who explores these endless accomplishments is Rabbi Stephen Covey, who's not a rabbi, but the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Covey has a lot to say about being true to your own character through an approach that he calls Inside Out, which has nothing to do with the movie. Inside Out means to start first with self, he writes. Even more fundamentally, to start with the most inside part of self, with your paradigms, your character, and your motives. If you want the secondary greatness of being recognized, focus first on the primary greatness of character. It is futile to try to improve relationships with others before improving ourselves. If only Laura and Rabbi Zusha had read Stephen Covey and saw that improving their character would not only improve their relationships, but they would also be participating in a sacred act. And this sacred act starts with our own paradigms, characters, and motives. So while playing video games probably doesn't count towards all 3 of these things, it helps me find the mental and emotional place for me to explore them. And in Baba Metzia, we see this interesting passage that says, if a person finds utensils such as silver or bronze, one can use them according to their need, but they are not allowed to wear them out. And one of our very own scholars, Rabbi Dr. Devorah Weisberg, wrote us a beautiful drash from this passage in an email she sent to us before the high holidays. And she wrote, each of you is a Kli Kadosh, a vessel through which God and Torah are manifest in the world. Your body is a vessel that houses the soul, a spark emanating from the divine. Care for yourselves as you would a precious object that had been placed into your keeping. This can mean a lot of things. This can mean living a healthy lifestyle, committing to healthy relationships, and starting with your own paradigms, characters, and motives. So Stephen Covey's Inside Out and Bein Adam Latzma'o and taking care of my Kli Kadosh cannot all be done through playing video games. I'm willing to admit that. However, video games help me find that emotional and mental equilibrium I need to work on these things. Before I conclude, I'd like to bring in some advice from Yitro, Moses' father-in-law. Yitro visits Moses and sees that Moses is judging Israel all day and all night, and it's exhausting. In response, Yitro says this, Ma hadavar hazeh asher ata oseh la'am, madua ata yoshev levadecha, v'chol ha'am yitzav alecha min boker ad erev. Translation, Moses, slow your roll. It's not an exact translation. You're wearing yourself and everyone around you out by the system that you've set up. Learn to delegate. Swear in skilled and godly people as judges to help you. In this way, you will be able to level up, and so will everyone else. It would seem that Yitro has read Dr. Von Wilson and Stephen Covey, and he may have even received Devorah's email. Because he understands the importance of Moses taking care of himself first in order to be a better judge and in order for Israel to have a better experience. And I believe that many of us manage this tension between enjoying pastimes that are not productive but still take up time and feeling guilty for spending too much time with them. And perhaps the guilt is more problematic than helpful. I'm not saying that one should will their guilt away completely. That's impossible. We're Jewish. What I am saying is that sometimes feeling too guilty is preventing a person from being true to their character and preventing them from leveling up. Thank you.